what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Arwin and Ranty. How are you both doing, gentlemen?
Doing good, thank you.
Yeah, doing good. Good
Excellent.
afternoon.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Now, Ranty did a little video yesterday, a little live stream, explaining, presumably because he couldn't contain his own excitement, and I don't blame him, that he's got something hot. Hot
is an understatement. This is white hot, scorching, absolutely fantastic. I guarantee that this video will be wanted to be shown on a lot more channels than the ones that it will be done today, that's for sure.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those videos that people are going to try and better. So people will be out with their cameras going, I've got to be able to get that too. Surely I can achieve that. Now, look, judgment, it doesn't matter. You got what you got. Let's have a look at it.
Sensational. Well, let's just wait for a few more.
Oh, let's just build it up a little bit. Okay, fair enough.
Let's build it up a little bit more, because honestly, I am so excited. I woke up last night. It must have been about 2:30 in the morning. Stayed awake till 5:30, and it was just going over my head because I've been mulling over this stuff for the last few days, and you know, you want to be sure with what you're presenting, and yeah, it's golden. It's so golden. I mean, yeah, I'll explain it all when you see it, but it's
maybe that's the way to do it, Ranty. Start by when you've got something juicy, you want to start by telling people what you're going to tell them, and in this case, you tell them what you're going to show them. Then you show them what you're showing them. Then you tell them what you've shown them. So this is the start. So tell us what you're going to show.
Well, what I'm going to show you is a lot of flat Earth, a lot of visual flat Earth, and I'm also going to show you that the layer known as the refraction zone, or the air that we formerly call refraction, it is possible at certain times to get underneath that layer of refraction and bypass all that dirty air that we used to call it. So let's bypass that refraction layer and look underneath it. You've only got a very small window to look, peep underneath it, and what you can see is astonishing. When the conditions are correct, it is fantastic.
I'm going to preface this a little bit by saying that this is kind of an internal bettering of each other's evidence in a way. So you've got Anthony, who's gone down to the beach, got on his belly and caught the floaty land, as it's fondly known, from 34 miles at about an elevation of a foot. So Ranty's gone out, and in essence, he's tried to do a similar sort of thing. He's taken observations, you know, he's taken with his camera, and as he would normally, but then he's done the same as Anthony. He's got right down onto the ground, got himself really low, and that's pretty much how this has been achieved, basically, getting lower, even lower than they've demanded. How low can you go? Well, get a couple of inches, and it seems you can get below the refraction band and see how flat it really is.
And what's also a story, which I actually just showed it you just before, was that in this one video, and I narrate through the video, so when I release the video later, you'll hear me narrating through it. So I'm actually standing up at an elevation of about 5 feet originally, right next to the water. And as I'm looking over at Barrow Inverness, everything is refracted. you can't make anything out. You wouldn't be able to tell which building was which, basically, even though it was a really, really, really still and calm day. And then when I lowered my elevation and went underneath the refraction zone, boom, everything was there. And floaty land to the left. We like a little bit of floaty land, don't we, Nathan?
Yeah, floaty land's not bad. I mean, it's back to Ireland versus Isle of Man when we got it wrong in terms of Ireland. There's stuff behind, and there's going to be arguments about this floaty land potentially. But on the other hand, when you actually just study the evidence as a whole, you go, wow, who cares about the floaty land?
It's astonishing to think that all this, I mean, we have tried everything to get higher and look further, and everyone says you need to go higher to see further, to get over the refraction zone. And to be fair, that's quite true, that you do tend to, obviously you can see further because you've got a limit to what you can see, anyway. But when we went, you wouldn't think to go lower, because you would think that's where the most dirty air is going to be, that's where the thickest atmosphere is going to be. You won't possibly be able to look through that. But when Anthony did it, and he went down to a foot, and he was able to see the floaty land, when I've been in that location and I was only able to capture the floaty land from the lowest part of the hill on one occasion, and it was standing up near where that Miles Davis did his video from.
Oh, the triangle, the concrete triangle thing.
Yeah, it was near there, and I caught it one time. And it was only a small fraction of the floaty land. It wasn't a lot. In fact, it was so irrelevant that I probably even deleted the video. But for Anthony to go on the beach, where I've been to that beach and I know how flat it is, and for him to see it from there, told me that maybe there's something going on. Maybe it is possible to get underneath the refraction zone. And that's essentially what we found out. And it is possible. And his observation, coupled with my observation, it might lead us in a new direction for observations, not just for ourselves, but for other flat earthers as well.
Well, we did discuss this before. So, is it Lag Ness, the lighthouse that we call the Diamond? Was that Lag Ness?
Yes.
So Lag Ness, when we were trying to come up with an explanation for how we could see that, because I had the same reaction. How is this even possible? How can we even see this lighthouse? And at the time, Chris's explanation was, well, you can get under the refractive band. You can get underneath the circle of confusion. And at this distance, there's a possibility that that's exactly what's happening. So the explanation had been given to me, but obviously when it turned out not to be Lag Ness Lighthouse, you have to disregard the explanation for it being there because it's not actually what you think it is in the first instance. But that explanation still holds valid. Now, in the case of what Randy's about to show you, it's a totally different ballgame. It's not as far, so some might say less dramatic, but in terms of what you're actually seeing, because it's less far, it's far more detailed. There's much higher resolution, even though it is at a significant distance. So it's, I don't know if we've built it up enough, but hopefully we'll move on to the showing soon.
Well, the floaty land is brilliant because the only land to the left of the buildings that we can identify are some land that's nearly 30 miles away, which is at 150 feet, or you've got to take the land at 18 miles you can see down to an elevation of 30 feet. I mean, in the video, you actually see to the shoreline. So they always say, show us the shoreline. Well, you see the shoreline. Trust me.
Right,
So
let's do this. Come on, without further ado, we've told them enough about what you're going to show them. You've got to... Let's go through
it. You want me to show it, do you? Oh, dear me. So impatient, Nathan, so impatient. Right, okay.
We've got a solid audience. There's like 80 something odd people watching, so it's not like there's nobody watching. It's not the beginning.
Okay. Right, let's start with the video, shall we?
Okay, you're up and presenting. I'm going to make you full screen.
Okay, I'll press play and you'll see what's what. So here I am at Anchor Zone Slipway. That's basically between Cleveland and Bisbee. This is where they're doing some renovation works on the promenade. I'm right by the water. My camera, my tripod's set to about 1.5 feet there. It's the smallest it can possibly go. And what I'm doing now is I'm looking over at Barrow in Furness. And I'm going to pause it in a moment because I want to point out a couple of things. So if I pause it here,
be sure to move your mouse though, just so you don't, each time you do it, just so you've got the actual image and not your scroll line and the black bit. It just blurs out the bottom half of the picture when you've got it, that's all.
Okay, well, everything is refracted double, right? We have a refraction line going through this building here. This is a particular building that I would like you to pay attention to because you do see it later on in the video. You can see the refraction line. It's beneath my cursor at the moment. You can actually see the refraction line. You won't be able to identify the building as it is. Over on this side, where we do have the clock tower and other buildings, but everything is refracted up on itself. That's a refraction of that. That light is a refraction of that. That's doubled up on itself. Essentially, it's a mess. Now, this is me holding the camera at chest height. So I would say it would be about 4.5 to 5 feet high at this time. And I'm just zooming in the video to say, I'm going to be filming over here, basically, and I'm going to get down to the height of the tripod in a moment. So I'm going to play the video, but this is the visuals that you get from 4.5 feet right next to the water. Now you can see all the refraction going on.
So while Ranty's playing this, I'll preface what's going on by saying this is like a pre-video, a warm-up video, if you like. So we're demonstrating what happens at 5 feet, thereabouts, 4.5, 5 feet, before we show the great reveal.
And what I'm doing now is I'm bringing the, taking the focus back, resetting myself. I'm going to crouch down to the height of the, which I have done now. I've actually crouched down. So if for a start on this building, can you already see that the refraction has disappeared completely? Wait for it to focus. It's a bit of a pain for it to focus, this P900. But in a moment, you're going to see the clock tower and all the buildings. And there it is, just to the left. I'll try and pause it. There we go. Now look at that. Everything. I'll just rewind that and pause it, hopefully. There we go. So there's the clock. There's the town hall. There's the church spire behind it. Here's all the buildings in the foreground. It's not refracted up on itself. It's easily identifiable. I even take still images after I've done this video. And you can see the difference. This is at 1.5 feet, I would say. There's still an element of refraction going in, but nothing. And you are seeing down to the shoreline. So this is going under the refraction zone. You can see the boat on the horizon. There's no curve. That one in the foreground. This is essentially what Anthony did. He went down as low as he could go, and he was able to bypass that refraction zone. So that's pretty much the end of the video, except for me just panning around and showing you that the camera is actually at the height of the tripod. And then I stand up, and you'll see that I actually stand up. So you can tell that I did actually go down beneath the refraction zone to capture that imagery.
Right, can you go to your photography next?
Yes. So what I do now is I lower myself back down again. You've just seen me basically sit back down on my arse again, which is now. And I'm actually saying on the video, right, I'm now going to stop the video and take some still shots. So this was DSCN 3701. So all I need to do now is find 3702.
Okay. It's right underneath it.
He crashed. You still there, Auntie? Yeah, I think he's had a crash.
Yeah, by the way, on first glance observation, I have to say that it looked somewhat different. Like with the higher up footage, there was definitely a mirroring effect going on there. But I did still see at the lower altitude footage, still did see some how do you say, some blurring.
Yeah, as he went right, as he got further, he could see some. I saw some as well on the right. I hadn't noticed that the first time I'd watched it, but to be honest, when you get to this, I was hoping it would get to it because it's far better. The still photography, because you can, obviously, he's resolving more information when he's trying to get a still rather than a shaky video. But he's crashed just at the wrong moment. But he'll bring up the stills, I'm sure, when he gets back, which will be hopefully momentarily. If he's just had a PC crash, which I'm sure he has.
Yep. Oh, by the way, Nami has joined as well.
Hey, Nami.
Hello, how's it going?
Pretty early this one.
Yes, I luckily managed to wake up in time.
Don't worry. We'll wait till you can't taste the toothpaste anymore. Yeah, that was a video Ranty dug out to sort of preface the stills that you were showing me yesterday. So he's only shown me that video this morning, and to be honest, it's not a touch on the stills that he's got, but it leads quite nicely because it shows some of the refraction that is going on prior to him showing you, detailed shots underneath the refraction zone, which is what he showed me yesterday, which got me so excited. But sod's law, we get to see the video that leads up to it, but not the actual stills because his computer's crashed.
Yeah, I find it very interesting because I've been trying to understand what's causing this. And I think that these bands of distortion at the horizon are caused by diffraction rather than refraction. And what he was showing there seems to support what I was thinking the other day, the stuff I was posting in the Skype chat. I'm wondering, I want to ask him about some of the conditions present when he was taking the footage there. Like, was the tide going out or in, things like that? Because I think that stuff actually matters quite a bit.
Hello.
Hello, welcome back.
I had an issue with my PC then, for whatever reason. I'm just about to present, and my disk, everything just seemed to refuse to work. So that was very odd.
No worries. We're at the point that you present the money shot, the best bit.
I know. We'll get there.
It's all good.
I'll get there.
It's building tension for the audience. Well over 100 people watching, so.
Awesome.
Let me know when you're ready.
Okay, yeah, hang on.
No rush.
My computer's still just loading up at the moment.
No pressure.
That's it now.
Yes, exciting, isn't it? Got under the refraction band, that's right. While you're looking for your PC to start and get photos ready and stuff, I'm going to plug my show later with Quantum Eraser. So John and I are going to do a presentation. Well, I say John and I. John will do it on this channel at about 6 PM UK time. I think it's 6 PM, 1 PM Central. So yeah, tune into that. Quantum mechanics is the subject matter. Be sure to tune in.
Right, okay. I forgot what number I was up to then. 3702, right, okay, so let me just present. Screen share. Okay, so
while you're getting that photo up, I'll just summarise what's just happened, just so this is condensed to this section now. So what Ranty's just shown us is a video. Maybe I won't. Is a video of his observation from about chest height and showing the refraction band and then dipping below it, but it was a video. So now we're moving on to the still shots of some of the buildings, etc., that are below the refraction band. So when you're ready, you pop it up and I'll display you.
So the video was at 3701. In the video, you actually hear me saying that I'm going to crouch back down again and take some still images, which I do. So this is image 3702. Now you can see the cresting wave, you know, in the foreground. So you know that I am actually in the same location. But look at this. Look at this. This is sensational. I mean, the refraction zone is not evident at all. There's no refraction going on here whatsoever. All this is exactly how we see it from a higher elevation. When I look down from 50, 60 feet high, I have got those images. I've just not had time to look for them yet. I'll do that on my channel later. But this is the same thing that you see from really high up. This is exactly what you see. We're seeing down to the shoreline, essentially. And then over here, this is where the start of the floaty land starts. Now, this is the interesting part, because we have the only land that is visible here is either the sand dunes at 30 to 35 feet high, or in the far distance at nearly 30 miles away, we have the backside of this mountain range that comes down, goes right down and rises up to 150 feet. Now that's at nearly 30 miles away. So it's basically take your pick, because it's either 150 foot part of this at nearly 30 miles away that should be 450 feet beyond the curve, or it's the sand dunes in the foreground at a distance of around about 17 miles or so that are about 35 feet high.
We would just go back to the clock tower for a second, Ranty.
Yeah.
So this clock tower, you're seeing all of it.
Yep.
Previously, you've had sort of refraction when you've got down to the beach in previous demonstrations of this clock. You do have refraction running through it, so you've got half a clock and half a band of refraction, i.e., the same as what you showed on the video earlier in this show. But there's none of that. I mean, the next thing I'm hoping you'll go to, unless you've got another photo in this series, is the reverse of what we normally get, which I was also astonished to see when you got the refraction going upwards.
Yes, that will be. This is 3703. Again, we're getting a tiny little bit of distortion going on. It's like the atmosphere was changing between me taking a click of the image. So I think it probably took me 45 seconds to a minute to reel off 10 images of this location, right? And in that time, we actually see this clock reverse up on itself. It's, it's really freaky. You was the one that pointed that out, if I remember rightly, Nathan.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm so used to seeing what we normally get is whatever, a lighthouse, a landmark, refracting down upon itself, and then that band gets more and more blurred out depending on the conditions. And then that is counted by globe heads as refraction. Here we go. Whereas what we see here is the complete opposite. We're seeing down to the shore, and then we've got the clock refracted up.
And yet these buildings, this isn't a refraction of themselves. This is how those buildings look. This is exactly how I see them from 60 or 70 feet high. All the shoreline underneath is exactly the same. But you can see that the church spire here, this is the spire part there, it's doubling up on itself. And this is being stretched right up. And I think in the next images, here we go, we can see another portion it's higher again. But the really low stuff, because I'm really low, and the really low stuff is not being affected at all in the image. Nothing is being affected. Nothing right down to the shoreline. And now this is the shoreline, and it's basically you've got a sandbank running around it, and you can see where the refraction zone is starting to take effect, and it's starting to take effect on these buildings at this height. These are the highest buildings in the area, so it makes sense that it's just a very lucky observation that I was able to capture. This is where the refraction zone's happening, and we see it even more in the next image. I mean, look how it's doubling up on itself even more. The lower buildings, they're not being affected though, because we're underneath the refraction zone here. Again, these buildings not being affected. There is some more land still visible in these.
Can I ask a question?
It's kind of underneath the refraction zone. I'm not too sure how to even.
Well, there you go, Arwin. Can you see this building, this white building, and it's refracting up. It's mirroring itself upwards.
Well, how would you know, really?
Well, because the rest of the buildings are all consistent with what they look like. So when Ranty's shown me the same shots from on that promenade, that concrete promenade, it's about 35 feet high, and he's looking down, it negates the refraction zone also, and you get the same effect. Here we go. Look, you can see it. You can go back one shot, Ranty. See through the tops of the building? Look where the refraction... That would normally be at the horizon. That's above it. It's above the horizon, so we've got a clear view of the horizon, and yet the tops of stuff is being refracted above itself. This is not what we normally see at all.
So that's a mirage, basically.
Yeah, but the tops of the buildings are miraging upwards. Normally we get them miraging downwards, and then it blurs out, and they call it bloody curvature.
Ranty, can I ask you, was the tide going in or out when you took these photos?
I believe it was just still going out.
Right. And it looks like it's not very many waves, right? It's pretty calm for that area.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. I think I believe that those are the conditions that you're going to be able to see low to the ground like that.
Look at the side here of the mountain.
It's going to be calm.
It's also getting distorted.
Arwin.
Oh yeah,
See?
well spotted,
cut
Arwin.
off.
Yeah, well spotted.
Very weird.
Yeah, but I think that you're going to be able to see down to the shore when you have the conditions of the tide going out and the waves. Well, the waves are smaller when the tide's going out, so that helps. You need calm weather and the tide going out.
Can you just go back? Sorry to interrupt, Nami. Can you just spin back a couple more shots just so that we end on the perfect shot before the refraction started to take effect? Because you got two shots that were basically, they looked the same to me as when you got it from a higher elevation. There wasn't any interference at all. You'll get there eventually. It's about 6 more shots.
From what I'm seeing, my first glance conclusion here is that the entire thing is basically in the miraging, in the refraction zone band. And it's just, I don't know, maybe it's because of the low angle that you get this strange effect, but the whole band, it seems like the entire set of buildings there is within.
So if you look,
zone.
Arwin, thanks to your spotting of the refraction band in the mountain, you can see the exact point on the far left hand side of this. Oh no, it's not quite on screen. I'll just change it for the audience. Hold on a second. Oh yeah, there you go, Ranty. Do you see it? You can just move the frame as far right. Yeah, I don't know if, yeah, the audience can see it now but you can see where the miraging is above the buildings. Do you see it? There's like a little chunk taken out of the mountain.
Oh yeah, yes.
Well, that's where in other words, that's above what you're seeing. So that's where you're having the effects of the miraging and a circle of confusion. It's above all the buildings you're looking at. Hence the I'm going to shrink it down just so again it is for the audience. Where this clock tower is and where these buildings are, this is exactly how it looks from a higher elevation because the refraction band is above it.
I can see this entire image, what I'm looking at now, when I'm around about 60 or 70 feet high on the seawall at the top, and I can look over and I can see Barrow in Furnace, and it looks like this. And then when I get down to, 15, 20 feet, 6 feet, it's all blurred, and you don't see it. And then when you lower right down to, like Anthony did, to about a foot and a half, you get underneath that refraction. And it brought it back perfectly. Don't forget, the curvature calcs say that none of this should be visible. None of this should be visible, right?
Okay, so maybe what is happening there then is that basically the bending of the light, and this would not be diffraction, but indeed refraction, is normally it's bending, and then it reflects off the surface of the sea, causing the entire thing to look blurry. but when you're low enough, then it doesn't really get to reflect. The angle is too steep
Yeah.
to have the same effect, and you get to see it like this.
I think
I mean,
you're
And you
right,
can
Arwin.
see,
But
like, in a
ultimately speaking,
narrow
before
band,
we get there, Arwin, I
point
just want to
effect.
focus on the fact that what Ranty's actually demonstrating here is about 14-mile expanse with perfect clarity of buildings a foot off the ground. So he's seeing 90 degrees from where he is, 14 miles, absolutely no refraction in play whatsoever, because you can see where it is in play above. So this is a
18
ball
miles to
destroyer,
the
absolute
clock
ball
tower.
obliterator, flat Earth confirmation.
Yeah, but Arwen, I just want to say that I think that it's very similar conditions to the conditions that Anthony got his footage, which is tide going out, calm water. So if those are the necessary conditions, like I predict that those are the necessary conditions for that kind of observation. And if that turns out to be the case, then it's in all likelihood it's diffraction causing it, not refraction. And that's why you get these bands, right? So it even makes sense that the band is going to move as you move up and down. What would be interesting is to get like, it would be really great if we could get like a gyroscopically stabilized camera mount and then just slowly wind it up and down, like from, you know, say 6 inches to 1.5 feet while fully zoomed in. And I bet you could see those bands. Those bands are going to just move like up and down as you go through that, as you move the camera up and down while looking at the horizon line. You'll see the bands of diffraction change from that angle. But I think you need like, the reason that you can see so low to the ground is because there's practically no waves in the water. So there's
no obstruction from
the diffraction at that height is practically nil.
These are the money shots right now in this video. This is when you're lower,
beautiful.
aren't they? You're
look
lower
at
now, aren't you?
that
You're
side
below
of the
it.
mountain right there. See? You even see it like sticking out.
Yeah.
On the top of there. It's really bizarre.
But look at how calm the water is, eh? There's like placid for the ocean.
It was a sensational day. I believe this was the day that I actually videoed the wind turbines.
So there you go. So pause it there. You've got refraction there. See, these are refracted. These are slightly further away and slightly higher up on the hill. And you do have a perfect mirage on them. Do you see?
Yep.
There we go. Yeah, you keep going. There we go. Perfect. Here, just before the boat.
Right, I'll pause it if I can.
There we go. Perfect. So you've got like, the mirage line is well above the shore. That's the line that dissects whatever it is that's refracting above. I don't know if this is going above or below itself. It's hard to tell, but obviously it's really easy when you've got a clock face.
Yeah. This is why I'm so excited. I'm so excited because I did it in one continuous video where I showed me holding the camera at an angle of about 5 feet. Sorry, an elevation of about 5 feet, and then I went down to about 1.5 feet, and everything clears up. It clears up, and we're seeing buildings from 18 miles away in crystal clarity, the entire peninsula lit up. And we're seeing the floaty land.
Yeah, pretty cool.
And there's the height that I was filming from, basically the height of the lowest point on my tripod.
Absolutely awesome. Have you got anything you want to add, just so, because this could round out your presentation, so to speak?
Well, I'd like to add that is it going to be repeatable? Probably. Is it going to be repeatable on a regular basis? Probably not. But what it does show is that when you get the right conditions, like what Anthony had and myself, and if you do the reverse and you think to yourself, let's go lower and let's just see if we can get the same results. That's what I would like to say. I mean, thanks to Anthony's video and my video, this might be a trend now for flat earthers to perhaps look into doing this. And I mean, this is astonishing proof of a flat plane. Let's put it bluntly, it really is. I mean, we shouldn't see any of those buildings. And everything's lit up.
There's no bulge, there's no obstruction, there's no curvature. There's just a clear view at 90 degrees to where you're standing. Simple. because there's a clear ocean and you're below the circle of confusion.
Exactly, yeah. And it's my suggestion that probably the refraction zone probably starts at around about 3 feet, I would say, maybe, or 2.5 feet in elevation. But how many 2.5 foot people do you know that can see this? So unless you actually get down and try it, you're never going to know. And I think this was more born out of it wasn't like we thought to ourselves, let's go and try this. It just, Anthony did it. I had to go for it. And hey, look what we can see. You know, we stumbled across this, but it is fantastic.
Yeah.
Kudos, as always, Ranty. That's superb. Thank you for sharing it with us.
No.
Yes, very cool.
It's funny because in a way it kind of reminds me of the baller's attempt to explain like how an image could be bending around a ball. Remember, like that weird experiment where they put some liquid gas on a ball and then see how it bends the light temporarily. Well, maybe because of the view being so close to the surface, you actually get like a counter effect, or yeah, where it's just a zone where the it's such a straight line through a perfectly consistent air density that you get to see the least blurred image because of that. That if you're higher up, you get still slightly different air density layers, causing all that miraging effect. So
I think
that's what I'm thinking about right now.
my personal take on it is that it has a lot less to do with air density than it does to do with the conditions of the surface of the water, which I think
But
like
that is both. But
yeah, well, I was talking to Anthony the other day, and I told him that I asked him if the tide was. You can ask him. He can verify this. That I said, was the tide going out and the water really calm? And he was like, yeah. And then that was the same as Ranty's condition today. And I think that if you want to reproduce these kind of results, that those are the conditions that you're going to need in order to do it. You're going to need the tide going out and the water to be calm. You need the surface to be as flat as possible. And like, it's actually the size of the wave caps. It's the amplitude of the waves in the water that determine the placement and size of the distortion bands. And it's not the air density. It's the surface of the water and the conditions of that it's causing different, what they call like knife edge diffraction effects. To me, that makes most sense. I don't know. That's my theory on it, anyways. But
basically,
what's interesting is that after thinking about that, I did manage to predict what the conditions were in Anthony's video, and then it's the same with Ranty's. So I'd like to see how that develops in the future, because it would be kind of interesting if we could understand what the conditions would be to get it would be just easier to get these kind of observations if you know what conditions to look for, right? Like what days to go out on and what time to do it.
the most ideal setup would be if somebody, you'd actually have to do that, get a camera and then put it there, like really close to sea level, and then film it during an entire day.
Yeah.
And just as the different tides scenarios unfold, have the close-up and see like how the entire diffraction effect is changing, like how the blurring is changing, what is actually happening there. That would explain a lot. But yeah, you'd have to actually have your camera set up there perfectly still for an extremely long period, and that is a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, difficult but doable, right? I mean,
maybe if you brought your picnic basket, somebody to talk with for hours on end.
This is why universities should be, allotting some tiny portion of their budgets to experimental research or, unorthodox research, because they could get some grad students to do this or something like that. And that's what they should be doing. They should be doing, this is obviously still an area of research that needs further probing and activity. So, it's like this is what flat earthers have to do for themselves, right? But I'm sure at some point somebody will get to that. They'll get to, setting up maybe if someone has an oceanfront property or something like that, they could set up a housing and they could just leave the camera there wired up for 24 hours or more, right? And that would be very cool.
Or you could organize like a flat earth beach party.
Yeah.
From morning till evening. And then everybody bring their camera. you set them up in the morning, and then you just go have some fun and keep an eye on the cameras all day. And that way spend your time.
Yeah,
maybe even do some live streaming at the same time. Could be cool.
Well, I was thinking about actually if I can get a P900 at some point, about trying to find someone who with a lakeside property in Toronto and see if they'd be willing to just allow me, like if I can find some, a friend of a friend or something, if they would allow me to just, because I mean, I might be able to do an experiment like this. And Lake Ontario has great conditions because at least
that's a lake. It's not the same. It's like you can't really check the wave conditions, how that works on a lake. So
no, we get big waves. Right? It's a huge lake, so we get big waves sometimes, right?
So there's tides there.
Well, tides are not the only cause of waves, but I would say that, yeah, compared to the ocean, it's extremely placid and calm. Like we have much more frequently, we have the kinds of conditions that I think would be conducive to these kind of observations, which is, yeah.
Well, that's gonna be good anyway, but to actually figure out how the tides and the wave situations affect the miraging, then you'd actually have to do it at sea, like here where Ranty have been doing. And if you do it there, then if you have some groundwork to analyze how that works, then you have covered for a lot of people around the world, because most water surrounding land is sea. Yeah. So then everybody could compare that, could learn from that.
Well, when the tide goes out, the waves are always going to be smaller, right? So that's why I said that these observations are probably best made with the tide going out.
Well, if Nathan wants to present me again, I'd like to just show you two quick videos.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is the same day. So this was maybe 30 minutes before I took the video that you've all seen just before. This is looking at the wind turbines. And this is the same conditions, obviously. Very still water. But I'm now at an elevation here of about 45 feet.
Interesting.
And if you look at the turbines, the blades are actually bending downwards.
Yeah, you can even make out where the blurring zone starts. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But the next video, I mean, this
slightly different color, and there everything starts bending.
Yeah.
So this is me from elevation looking at these turbines. You can actually see the reflection in the water as well. I mean, the mirroring going on here with this turbine, for instance. But the next video is quite interesting. And this is looking over, this is from the same location, looking at the buildings that I was saying that you can see it from a different height. So I'm at 45 feet looking down at Barrow. And what's interesting is when we come to the clock tower, because you don't see much of it. In fact, it's all blurred out. Can you see the town? You can just make out the clock tower there.
Yeah.
The clock face. But the rest of the town is all blurred out. Those two buildings are still evident, next to each other. But they are blurred out too. Now, again, this is from an elevation of 45 feet.
45 feet?
Yeah. This is from the sea wall at the top, looking down. And what we're getting is this, what you'd expect to see nice and clear, this area here in Barrow. This is the town hall. You'd expect to see everything looking really nice. And the only time we get to see it looking really nice is when we're at 1.5 feet. This is from 45 feet. So I'm looking through all that air, the refraction. Look at it. You wouldn't be able to pick a building out apart from that.
Yeah.
From this position.
Yeah,
Again, with the turbines, the same position as I took the video just then. This is what's happening with the turbines. Everything's bending down and it's all out of shape and misshapen, right? The same day that I took the video, the next video, this one, and when I go down to 1.5 foot, we see the town. It should pop up in a second. There we go. Much more. Well, maybe not that image, that particular image, but let me get it.
It's about 120, 130.
Was it?
You know, this whole thing that I'm seeing, like all that footage, it's really reminding me of like it really were different layers that would have refraction effects, kind almost like a prisma, like going through a wall. Even you can see the layers, and that does kind of make sense, because if you look through this side of a glass, you can look straight through it. But then if you look at an angle, then it gets all distorted and bent. So it really does look like there's just different air layers. And then if you look through them perfectly horizontal, then you can see things very clearly. And if you go at an angle, then things get blurred. That is kind of what I'm making of this.
Yeah, I would kind of agree, because from 45 feet elevation, we only saw the top of the clock tower and everything else was blurred out. And people would say, oh, that's the curve of the Earth. They would. And, you know, when you get down to sea level, 1.5 foot, and you see the entire town, yeah, I mean, just brilliant. I mean, this land here as well, this land, floaty land,
yeah,
it's basically take your pick on this. You either suck it up and take it at 15, 16 miles at 35 feet, or you accept that it's 150 foot of this mountain, whereas it should be 450 feet behind the curve. So which one do you want? Or it's probably just angular size difference. At nearly 30 miles, 150 feet would look tiny.
Just to round this out, Ranty, can you bring up your Google Earth and just show us exactly what we're actually seeing at what distance? How you doing, Sleeping Warrior?
What kind of time do you call this? You normally start at 2.
Yeah.
You know,
because I've got another show on. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to plug it again. So I'm on at about 1 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. UK time with Quantum Eraser to do a demonstration on quantum mechanics. So be sure to be here or be sphere.
you're like a baller, constantly moving the goalposts. Get out to the beach. No, get under the floor.
Yeah, so this was the exact spot here where I took the images from. I'll just put a line of sight in just to show you on all three, basically. So from here, at 1.5 foot, Anthony's missed all this.
Yeah, I was watching while I was driving.
Yeah.
So to those buildings on the left,
Or listening, at least.
that are quite tall, those buildings on the left, which are here, 18 miles away, right? Where are we? To the clock tower, that's over here. Again, it's around about 18 miles. I believe it's that one.
Is this what you wanted to show me last night when I was chatting with Lewis?
It is. That's to the spire next to the church. So that's 18.62 miles away. And where's the other one? Here it is there. And this is to the clock face on the town hall. So this is the clock face. You can clearly make it out. That's the clock face. 18.05 miles away.
So we're talking 30 kilometres, for those of you like metric. 30 kilometres, absolutely no distortion, no refraction, apart from the stuff above it. You know.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, just this, Anthony, you've missed it. You really should have been here, but never mind.
I mean, just to summarise what they've got to argue, if you're a baller right now, right, you've got to argue that the stuff underneath the refraction band is being refracted around the curve of the Earth, right, and presenting itself perfectly, And you've also got to argue that the refraction band above is also being refracted around the curve of the Earth.
Now, what I was saying before about everything to the floaty land to the left, so that's everything from this spot here, which is those buildings, right? So when I zoom out and I'll show you, I'll put a line of sight in, right? So everything to the left of this line now is the floaty land, right? And let's go down to have a look at this terrain that's here, right? So everything to the left of this, right? So we're down to 25 feet, 30 feet, 30 feet, 21 feet, 21, 30 feet, 38 feet, 20 feet, 32 feet, 33. You know, it is so low down. So you guys are going to suck the pill and say that this is what we're seeing at a distance of around about, well, let's do this. I'll do that in a minute. Or it could possibly be the back end of this mountain range here, which is around about, you've got periods that are 169 feet down to 80, 70, back up where it goes to the side of the mountain. So it's either this little portion here at a distance of nearly 30 miles. Let me just put that in and just see. Get a distance calculated for that. So, right, yeah, 29 miles pretty much, give or take. Or if we do it to the sand dunes, if you want to take it and say the floaty lands are sand dunes, well, let's see how far it is to them. So we're either seeing down to 30 feet at 13.4 miles. I can do the curve calcs on it too if you want.
Nah, don't bother. I mean, it's game over.
It is game over, I think. I want to kind of do the curve calcs. Just
fair enough.
To rub it. I want to kind of rub it in a little bit.
No, that's fair enough. So
13.3, if you take 13.3 and put it down to 1.5 feet high, we're either seeing 92 feet hidden when we're seeing down to 25 feet, or if we go to 29 miles and we do it at 1.5, we're seeing land that's about 150 feet high that should be 504 feet beyond the curve. So it's take your pick. Which one do you want to, which one do you want? This floaty land here?
This is the least of the good proofs in this to me. Look, you just stop where you are. Stop where you are. Look at the building. It's absolutely as clear as when you showed it me. I thought it was actually at the promenade, but it's higher from what you've just said. The one that was super clear like this was even higher, right? 60, 70 feet?
Sorry, which? Sorry?
You've got, I can't remember, about a week ago, you showed me some shots, and then you said, this is what I've got from the ground, and they were all blurry like they always are, but the ones nice and high up were nice and clear, just like these.
Yeah. And this is the town, this is the clock, this is the town, there's those buildings, there's the church steeple. And what's interesting, like you say, is later on you do see the refraction zone, and this is being stretched up, but the buildings underneath are staying still. I think to me that's the most compelling evidence of everything, because you clearly see the refraction zone then. Let me just find that image. There we go. There's one of them. So you can see that this is now being stretched up. This is being stretched up the steeple, and yet the buildings beneath it are all staying in focus.
That's really weird, man. It's like they're in the zone. There's like different layers, and each layer stretches the image into different directions, like opposing directions. One part stretches it up, the other stretches it down, and then beneath that bends back up again. It's
Arwen, look at the picture I posted in the side chat there.
And I think mirages themselves completely debunk a globe.
Oh, obviously.
Can you see how this is starting to be stretched and turned upside down on itself?
Is that not there for a Fata Morgana?
Yeah,
but
correct.
The buildings beneath it aren't being affected at all.
Yeah, it's because
that's the refraction zone. We're seeing beneath it.
there's a bunch of different bands of refraction zones, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's what I'm saying. And one bends it in a certain direction and the other in opposing directions. And yeah, it's like
Yeah,
a
we are looking
zebra
under.
pattern of diffraction directions.
We are
the
looking
same.
under it.
It's the same effect as basically what's causing the pattern in the double slit experiment,
Yeah.
I think.
Have you seen the
Which
video?
It could
Anthony?
definitely be something like that.
I think
It
it
does
is
support diffraction, your diffraction
caused
theory.
by the way that I don't know. I mean, it gets down to stuff that's very theoretical on some level, but it's just like how photons are interacting with the electrons on the surfaces of materials, right? And that they can, when they're absorbed and re-emitted, they're absorbed and re-emitted. They're only re-emitted in a limited set of directions. That they can't re-emit in any direction. It has to do with the electron spin or something like that, or whatever.
Right. Well, it
This is,
seems
sorry
like
to
it is.
just use that for another plug session. So that is something that John will be going through later on this afternoon for us in Britain, or midday or 1 p.m. Central for you guys in the States. So he'll be going through exactly that double slit experiment, the quantum eraser experiment, the whole shebango, and it's far less complicated than you might think. So again, well worth tuning in a few hours from now.
I know quantum eraser totally hates my interpretation of it, but it'll be interesting to see what's going on. I mean, I think it's a very interesting conversation regardless, and I'm not claiming to be the authority on such matters. I just have some ideas of my own about it.
What I am wondering is how the diffraction concept, knife edge diffraction, why then, when you're being so low to the ground, looking over such a surface, then why would in that setup be the refraction bands, the distortion bands, be so minimal in comparison?
You can kind of like get between them, right? You can situate yourself where you're not in the line of sight of one of the distortion bands between you and the target and the angle of the target. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but
are you there, Anthony?
You can basically like be inside in sort of like the what do they call it? Like the shadow zones, I suppose.
That's a very shady. Yeah, that.
Sorry to interrupt, guys. Sorry to
the...
interrupt. Just 1 second. Can you just pop the money shot up, just so I can have the nice clear one from 1.5 feet on screen, Ranty? If you can pop that photograph up.
You want to see it right now?
Just so I can leave it on screen at the moment. It's just one of the refraction shots, the many refraction shots that we get. So, but the one
no, this was the video. I was just going to
sure, but if you can just pop your still on, that's from 1.5 feet, that's got basically no refraction in any of the buildings at the shoreline, that'd be awesome. Just so I can leave it on screen.
So that building's not stretched?
Nope.
It kind of looks stretched, right? Am I the only one that sees that?
No, I've looked at it compared to stuff that is taken from a higher view. So unless the stuff from a higher view is also stretched.
Okay.
So you'll have to explain it to me. I was listening, but I couldn't see because I was driving at the time. But
right, I want to show you the video. Right, so this is me standing by the water. I'm holding the camera around about 4.5 to 5 feet chest height.
Yeah.
And I'm zooming in at the barrowing furnace. Yeah. Now, can you see all the refraction going on here? Can you see this building here in particular? This is a very good building to focus on.
Yeah.
That's where the tower is.
Look at the mountain edge there. It's
and
just.
Also, can you see the refraction
mountain
going on here and here and here? Everything's being refracted. Yeah, you can see it even there.
Look at the mountain edge. You might mistake that as a building, but it's just going sideways and then poof, goes straight on down. That's not a building over there. That's actually the mountain.
There's a partial inversion of the image there, right? Like half of it is flipped upside down in that segment of mountain.
Right.
So it makes it look square.
I tell you what, Ranty, if you want me to do it for you, because every time you put your mouse on, it blurs out what we're actually looking at. So when you talk, the audience will get to see my mouse.
Ranty,
so I will
you
point
seeing
out
what
stuff.
I'm seeing?
Hold on, Arwin.
Well,
so as you talk, I will point out to the audience, just so you don't have to move your mouse over it.
Okay, so to the far left-hand side where that tower is, just by the end of the, where the mountain tapers off, there's a tower there. There's a silver tower.
Yeah.
And that silver tower, you see it crystal clear when I lower my elevation in a moment. That building in the center, which is all deformed at the minute, that you see crystal clear. And then the town on the right-hand side, everything that's being refracted double and miraged on it, again, is crystal clear. Now, this is from an elevation of 4.5 to 5 feet, but in a moment, I'm going to drop my elevation and get down to the height of the tripod. I'm basically crouching right down as low as I can go, and it gets underneath this miraging layer, and then everything from being distorted becomes clear. I'll show you the video.
So would you agree that there's a superior mirage in the form of a Fata Morgana there, right? Are we all agreeing at that point, or am I seeing this wrong?
I think what we're seeing at this stage, Anthony, is it being inverted downwards.
And the ballers would say that's the curve of the Earth. This is what they've always said.
Exactly.
No, well, that's a Fata Morgana for me. Am I seeing something different to you lot?
Hold your horses till it gets to the end of what he's showing you, because in a moment he drops down, and it all changes. I mean, unfortunately, he's freestyling with his camera with it at full zoom, so it's a little bit wonky and it takes a while to focus. But he gets a good 100, 200 frames where it backs up what he's got in the stills. So I hadn't seen this yesterday when Ranty showed me the stills, which I was aghast at. You know, I just, when he starts, I'm doing it now, you start stuttering, going, because you can't quite comprehend how good it is.
Yeah, it's less distorted now, and you can see it by the mountain. In the higher footage, it's like a straight up cliff because of the distortion, and now it seems to be even out a little bit more.
I mean, look at the town; it's just fantastic.
Yeah, I see.
There's a slight element of miraging going on, especially when I move to the right-hand side. So away from the town now, to the right in a moment, it seems to, the miraging effect takes place. But look at that building, crystal clear. You see the spire, it's a chimney actually, it's a chimney that's there. You can now see that. That town is crystal clear, and that's because I've lowered my elevation to about 1.5 feet. Now, you got the same results for the Isle of Man. When you went, I've only ever seen that floaty land from where Miles Davis did his observation from. And that was one time and for a very short, brief time, and it was only a small amount. But yet you went down to the beach at a foot and was able to see those, the Isle of Man. And that gave me the incentive to try it for myself. Same conditions, very,
and can I just say, one of the main protagonists that made me do that was Sly Sparkane. And now on that, he just conveniently can't see it. He pretends that he can't see it at all. Yet Rumpus and Jeremy can both see it and both admit and accept that it's there. Yet Sly still protests that he can't see it. I mean, is that dishonest or what?
Just one more time. Now we've had the preface video, whatever you want to call it. Can you pop the actual stills up?
Yeah, sure.
So the stills are devoid of any miraging, right?
No, the miraging is there, but it's above everything that you want in focus, the beach and the buildings.
Yeah, I'm just seeing on the left side there how the mountain is completely different.
Yeah, because part of there's a partial inversion of the image there.
Yeah, but the higher taken footage, it's just cut off like a giant cliff as high as the buildings, and here you can clearly see it having an actual shape. It's slightly distorted, but
let me add
a big difference.
There's something to the bigger picture. When people like the Rumpus talk about non-standard refraction, it's the non-standard refraction that allows us to see these kind of things. Yeah. Well, even with the non-standard refraction, we're still seeing down to the beach. But they're telling us that the non-standard refraction just allows more curve around the bulge. And clearly it doesn't make any difference because the non-standard refraction is still based on a flat plane.
Well, wait till you see what happens in a minute, Anthony, right? Look at these buildings here that are lower down than that's the town hall, and there's the church behind it, right? So that's the town hall and there's the church behind it. And these two buildings, right? And the rest of this town doesn't move, but these start to get stretched up, right? You'll see this in some of the later images.
The crazy thing is that it doesn't have anything to do with refraction. Like those mirages have nothing to do with air temperature. They just have to do with positions of like your relative position to the surfaces between and the conditions of the surfaces between you and what you're looking at. Like this whole idea that these type of phenomena are caused by refraction is actually just a completely false lead, in my opinion. It's just something that we've been.
Yeah, essentially what it is, this is the refraction zone here where my cursor is. So this is being refracted up and stretched, and we're underneath the refraction zone here. So all these buildings are being left intact and they aren't being affected by the refraction zone, which is here. You can actually see a mirage of that here. So you know the refraction zone is right in the middle, exactly where it's splitting this building and where it's the spire is being inverted on itself. And the buildings underneath, and this is down to the beach. This is down to the beach, right? These buildings are not being affected, and they're the same in this shot as they were in the earlier shots. But
so basically, what you're showing is the difference between standard refraction and non-standard refraction, right? This is how they would argue it. But there's no effect on the apparent curvature. It's just the effect on the horizon, right? The curve's not being, the horizon's not bending around the curve or adjusting. It's just the horizon changes the way it appears.
Yes, exactly.
It can't really be refraction.
It's not refraction. What was the weather?
There's different layers bending the light, bending the optics in different directions.
Yeah, but
that's not consistent with the refraction concept.
I'm thinking like a baller, because this is what they're going to have to. This is how they would. They'd ignore this because they don't want this to exist.
Yeah, but they can never explain it.
Forget what the ballers are saying, because their whole explanation of all of this is just completely wrong. It has nothing to do with refraction.
I agree.
Ranty, can I ask you what was the weather like? This was it a warm day, a cool day?
I'm trying to think now. Let me get the property on it and check the date. I can't remember. It was date on the 5th of this month. So what day would that have been? Till Saturday.
Yeah.
Saturday was nice. It was fairly warm. I would say it was probably around about 18, 19 degrees.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't think that these effects have anything to do with air temperature. I really don't. I think that, you know, this whole conversation about refraction we've been totally misled, but from the very start. I mean, even that some of the premises that we've been willing to accept have been.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what Anthony's observation did when he went down to a foot and he had the same sort of water as this. He was able to capture the northern side of the Isle of Man from 1 foot, right? Yeah. And essentially, I'm doing the same.
Yeah.
And it blows the curve calcs out of the water.
Totally.
So,
by a wide margin.
This is some of the most interesting stuff that I've seen. Yeah, like this, some of the most fascinating footage I've seen ever of this kind of thing, just from you guys in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, this even outdoes Tim's footage.
So, where's the bulge then between us and the observer and the target?
Doesn't look much bulge there, does it? It looks pretty flat water to me.
So there's no hidden and there's no bulge.
It's a pancake. Flat.
Well, why would you assume there's a bulge?
Because that's what's required on their model.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, there's no bulge
between the observer and the target.
There's no bulge. It's just so silly.
Of course there's a bulge. We live in a ball, you moron.
You live on a bulge.
Anthony, would you agree this is floaty land over here, mate?
Yeah, that looks like land. What is that land?
Floaty land. It's either at 13.5 miles away, sand dunes at 25 to 30 feet high, or it's a mountain, part of this mountain in the background that's 29 miles away, that's 150 feet. So either way, they can choose which medicine they want to take on that.
Well, you could work it out, couldn't you? Because you could double the distance from the land to the tip of the fall off point on the mountain that we see, and then the same distance going the other side, and then you should be able to work out what that land actually is. Well, So, but again, bowlers will just ignore this. So the only way that we're going to get them to respond to this will be to get to poke them a couple of times or set fire to the toes or something. Do we need it? I think it speaks for itself, to be honest. I don't think we need them to respond in any way.
No. I mean, you can see the water. I mean, this is a little bit of water that's lapping up on the, with the tide. It's probably only about, what, 3 or 4 inches high?
I know, but anti-Google Earth plus or minus 30 meters, right? You must be at least 99.9 feet off the floor, off the thing, if it's because it's plus or minus 30 meters, right?
Yeah,
so I'm going to put you at 100 feet.
The problem is, I have a video to go with it, so that's the good point, and I'm actually right next to it, right next to the water. So yeah, there's no getting away from that. And even in the video, you see me crouching down. That's why I showed the reflection of myself.
So again, they're going to have to argue that it's being loomed back up at just the perfect rate for it to match what it looks like on a flat plane, right?
And also then the refraction zone to start above that, a secondary refraction zone.
Yeah, knobheads.
So there we go. Happy days.
That's so cool. So cool.
It is cool.
Well, very interesting.
I'm learning a lot here. I'm really learning a lot about how this system actually works. I'm really surprised that so much of the miraging effects, or however we're going to call it now, the refraction zone, it's apparently not really refraction, how that actually goes away when you go lower down. I'm staggered by that.
Yeah, well, it
gives a whole new angle to it, literally.
Yeah, but the mistake of thinking of it as refraction just leads us in false directions of understanding it.
Yeah, well,
see, I always thought the dirty air sat on the water, like literally on the water. It was like the water was where the air had to be all that dirty air had to be right next to it. I mean, practically touching it. So to realize that it doesn't actually start until probably what I would say 2.5 feet high. You can actually get underneath it. It's like looking under the blanket. If the mattress is the earth and the blanket's on top, you can take a peek underneath the covers and let's see what's under there. Because Anthony was able to see, like I say, the Isle of Man doing that exact same thing that I've just done there.
Yeah. I'd love to see like a study of systematic observations of the same, of like what you're doing, but comparing different water surface conditions, because I think that, like I've been trying to emphasize that, I think that that's going to be the major contributing factor to what we observe.
Well, that would definitely be an experiment. A test to confirm if it really does matter that much. And even by having like a flat earth beach party and just putting the cameras down all day from morning to evening and just see how it changes over the day, that could definitely yield some really interesting results.
Yeah.
To further work out this theory, because I think that your diffraction theory might actually be the real thing, the effect that is causing all of this.
I'm pretty sure it is. I'm like 90% sure. It just totally fits. It just fits perfectly especially now that you guys have made these new videos. It's just like, wow, it just fits like the shoe fits perfectly. Amazing. Very interesting. And thanks guys for coming up with this stuff. It's great. Valuable. And I think it's going to have an impact on this conversation that maybe you guys don't even expect.
I hope it does. I mean, the fact that Anthony it wasn't a one-off, basically, when he saw the Isle of Man, it's repeatable in other places under the right conditions. And when they say, with the right conditions, well, that must mean refraction. Well, no, because in these images and the video itself, it shows where the refraction layer is. And we go underneath it. We slip underneath that refraction zone, under the air that causes the refraction. We get underneath that, and we're able to see flat for miles.
So we've got about 3/4 of an hour left on this live stream. I hope you're all enjoying the debate thus far. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Massive thanks to all who have done so already. Sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. As I say, there is about 3/4 of an hour left on this live stream.
I didn't notice this until just recently. So let me know when we're on, Nath.
Yeah, you're on.
Look at this as well. In the Metabunk curve calculator nonsense thing, when you click the standard atmospheric conditions, which is what the 7.6R is actually supposed to be based on. It's actually based on a radius that's an apparent radius. He admits it himself. But in this, there are 4 variables, and I've spoke about this many times. It's the temperature, the altitude, the pressure gradient, and then the ideal gas law in molar form. Now, I've never really looked too much at this ideal gas law in molar form. I remember what molars were in chemistry, and I know what the ideal gas law is. But look what it says here. The ideal gas law is the equation of state of a hypothetical ideal gas. It's not even a real gas. It's a hypothetical ideal gas. So one of the 4 controlled variables that you can manipulate to influence the refraction index is a hypothetical ideal gas.
Hilarious.
Yeah, it's
a hypothetical ideal gas. That's like having a hypothetical ideal woman.
Or a hypothetical $1 million in the bank. So it's like one of the 4 variables, which is what Rumpus has to manipulate with these ray traces. And this is what he was doing. He was making that's a hypothetical, that's a hypothetical, that's a hypothetical. But not only is it a hypothetical, it's the hypothetical ideal gas. So not only is it hypothetical, it's also ideal, which is like the perfect gas, as it were. And it's a hypothetical one at best. It's literally a nonsense. But people like Nick with Noel, he'll argue that this is that just because it says hypothetical, it doesn't make it nonsense. No, it's a hypothetical ideal gas that does not actually exist. It's not an actual ideal gas. It's not an apparent. It's a hypothetical. It's like Coriolis and gravity, a fictional force. It's like, why do they use these these words that dilute the meaning of these words? So instead of saying it's a radius, they say it's an apparent radius. Well, instead of saying it's a gas, it's a hypothetical gas. It's like when Rumpus said you can never get a perfect vacuum because you get things called virtual particles.
This is their definition of science.
Yeah, virtual particles inside a vacuum. Are you stupid? You can't have virtual particles. They're either particles or not. No, you can have virtual particles because science says so. Really? So what's a virtual particle? Is it a particle or is it not? Is it a 1 or a 0? Because you can't have a 0.5. It's either a 1 or a 0, right? It's either something in there or there's not. And if it's supposed to be a perfect vacuum, then it's not a perfect vacuum, is it? Because there's an apparent something in there. It's literally nonsense. So one of the 4 variables that they've got to change is a hypothetical ideal gas. It's utter garbage. This is why you can bend these lines any way you want, because the hypothetical and they're supposed to be ideal. But when it's hypothetical and ideal, it makes no sense whatsoever.
I just wanted to say as well, if anybody wants the images or the video, send me a message on YouTube and I will send you a link to the Google Drive and you can download them from there. So, and it's free to use. You know, there's no copyrights with any of this, so just do what you need to do with it. It's free for everybody to use.
And although I say this a lot, please share the show. You know, I know there's newbies who watch these shows that just come in and want to see a debate immediately. So it's good to have flat earth proofs on some of these shows occasionally. And that's outstanding what you've shown today. So please share the show. I do mean it when I say it.
Yeah, and don't bully the newbies, Nathan. Just because they might come in with all these fancy ideas and think that the Rumpus. Doesn't mean you need to treat them like the Rumpus, because he gets his own special treatment because he's his own little special snowflake. But when newbies come in, let's be nice to these newbies. They think we live on a ball, Nathan. It's not their fault.
Right. Do you remember going in? Do you remember your first encounter with?
Us that they deserve the treatment.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you went into Red Rhetorics? First ever debate when you were a newbie. How did you get treated?
Terrible. I was treated. I mean, there were some parts of it that were cordial, but when they got to the parts that they thought it was like the killer blow, and I'm sat there thinking, hang on a sec, this is maths. But at the time, I didn't realize that maths wasn't actually the answer. It may be a answer, but it don't prove that it happened. It just means that there's a mathematical formula that fits. Does that mean that it's true? I mean, I'll give you an example, right? Today, I was waiting for a delivery, and Yodel, the company that deliver around here, they give you a tracking number. And on the tracking number, you can put it into their website and put your postcode in, and it'll tell you, we've received it, it's been dispatched, the driver's got it, and then it says, like, there are X amount of deliveries before your drop. So you're watching this drive. I mean, it was 36 this morning when I plugged into it, and then it dropped down to 29, and then it came like 18, then it came down to 7, and then dropped down to 4, and then dropped down to 1. And I'm watching this number time down, and I'm thinking, is this going to be actually accurate or not? Because this is basically their maths, right? This is like, for me, I'm thinking this is a model. This is their maths. And I'm waiting for it, and it was on 1. And it'd come down at a predictable rate at this point, but it's coming down, it's 1. And I'm waiting for it, and I'm 1. And I'm thinking, it's going to be here any minute. I'll have the door open. In fact, I'll have the kettle on for him. Do you know what I mean? Because I know he's coming in the next 30 seconds. And I'm waiting for it, and I'm waiting for it. 24 minutes later, he did turn up with it. But I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, that's not predictable enough for me to think it was actually, real. Was it a fluke? Or was it somehow predicted? Or was there just some other explanation for why it was was it a coincidence? And the conclusion was, if he'd have turned up when it said 1 minute after I was told, then I'd have gone with that as being credible. But it wasn't. It didn't do that. And I was sat there waiting and waiting. So is it maths that we're seeing here? Some kind of technology telling me what's happening, and it really is happening? Or was it some kind of template? And my answer was, well, I'm not sure, because it didn't turn up at the 1 minute mark. It did turn up 20 minutes after the 1 minute, but is that 1 minute? Is that a hit or is it a miss? And it was borderline. You couldn't really tell, because it didn't tell me one or the other. But the delivery guy normally gets here between 11 and 1 o'clock anyway, and he was within that window. So I'm like, is it a model that we're looking at that works? Or are they just telling me something to keep me interested, to make me think that it's all about me? You know what I mean? The whole world revolves around me, and I just couldn't tell. So it didn't prove to me that this thing was working. It just told me that, hey, keep pressing refresh. It's interesting, but is it real or is it not? Who knows?
Right, and the mathematics given to the globe heads based on a presupposition that you're on a globe also don't make the Earth a sphere. So I'd be interested to know from the people who believe that it does, because we've got quite a number of them in the chat at the moment. Good numbers of ballers. I'd like to know what their explanation is for Ranty getting down to 1.5 foot and seeing stuff that's 18 miles away. What's the score there?
Yeah. Did you notice there was a new guy? There's 2 new guys out last night. Sandra Coolpix P900. She sent me a message saying, can you have a look at this idiot's video? So I looked at this guy's video, and he's basically gone on the Isle of Man from 70 miles point. And he started off by saying that it proves that Metabunk's miles out, yeah, but then concluded it was a ball Earth proof. And he's applied this thing called the Canigou effect, right? Which he's just made this up. I mean, I've not heard anybody referencing the Canigou effect. But for those of you that may or may not be aware, apparently two different days of the year, the sun sets behind the mountains at Canigou in the south of France. And if you catch it on a clear day, you can see 280 miles or whatever it is. And he's calling this the Canigou effect, right? And Sandra's like, no, I see this all the time, you moron. It's not a Canigou effect at all. But I mean, he's paraphrasing. So anyway, I did a response video to him. I'm basically saying, okay, well, let's just say for the minute you can have Sandra's one. We'll call it a ball Earth proof, even though it's ridiculous, but we'll call it one for the moment. How do you explain this? And I did him like a 10-minute video just saying, right, this is a floaty land. Here it is, taken from here. Went down to the beach, got the same image. How do you explain that? And I'm waiting for him to come back to me. But then another guy's responded on the when I went down to the tape measure, 144 feet thing for flat Earth math. And basically what he's done is he said that the crosshairs weren't exactly in the right place. And to be honest, I couldn't even see the screen. I couldn't see the crosshairs on the screen. I couldn't see what they were aiming at. I was trying to do it the best I could in what I had to do it in. And it's as close as I could get it based on the circumstances. But what he's identified is meant to be the camera, which is, bear in mind, a camera is a small plastic square thing that's from 144 feet. It's going to represent kind of like a pixel on the camera lens. He's picked off this thing that's 4 times wider than the wooden post behind it, which is clearly not the camera. I don't know what it is. It might be a rock or something, a bin bag or something. I don't know. But ultimately, it's not the camera because it's like 4 times wider than the wooden post behind it. And it can't be the camera. But he's claiming that's what it is. And, you know, he might be right. There may be some other bizarre explanation for it. But my point is that there are 2 newbies that are on the scene now that I've not seen before. And I'm thinking, yeah, lure them in. So I'm sending out the fishing nets and I'm reeling them in like a fisherman pulling in his fish. And let's just see if they end up on the shore flapping around like bananas. Because otherwise, they're also going to be victim to this thinking that we live on a ball nonsense too.
Well, I just want to say that the Flat Earth meetup that I first ever went to, right? It was held in Blackpool, and you turned up. I'd already met you, Anthony. If you remember, we'd done the observations of Blackpool. Yeah. But there was Sandra there, P900 Coolpix, and both of you didn't have a P900 at that time. I'd just bought one, not about 2 or 3 weeks before. And then we had Jamie Brown. He was there. And if you think about the people that are actually going out and doing a lot of stuff right now, from the core of people that turned up at that Blackpool meet like a year ago, it's like I'm going out all the time observating. You bought a P900, Sandra bought a P900, and Jamie Brown is doing his daily shows on all kinds of different streams, Twitch and everything, yeah? And I think it all stemmed from the fact that when we went to near the Pleasure Beach and we looked over at Barrow in Furness, and I pointed out, and we took images of it, and I said, that is the lighthouse in Barrow in Furness, right? From the Pleasure Beach, which is about another 8 or 9 miles further away, right? And everybody saw it. You were there, Anthony. You probably heard me saying it. But everybody was saying, what's that building? And when I told them how far away it was, and it was Barrow in Furness, and I think it kind of like lit a fuse under everybody. And everybody since then has just gone out and like bought the P900s and everything. So it was a brilliant meetup. I would highly recommend it if you get a chance to go to a meetup, do it, because it will give you a bit of passion for this subject. A shout out to Jamie Brown too, who keeps on plodding on with his daily shows. You know, I mean, just like Nathan here. You know, they're not dissuaded by the trolls.
Nah, you get used to them eventually.
Speaking of trolls, is the link public, Nathan?
The link is always public.
Well, just while Ranty was presenting, I thought you might not have been.
No, it's been at the whole show. Just no one's joined. I had Alan say, "Oh, it's not there," and I've gone and clicked refresh. It's there. Just don't know what he's talking about, but he hasn't joined.
Trolls are running out of ammunition these days.
I think that's the main reason why a lot of the protagonist trolls, you know, the obvious idiots like the Rumpus, Slice Barcane, they don't like coming on this show because they know that there's like 2 or 3 of us that have been doing more than the average flat earther that will go. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but at least we've got evidence that goes against their narrative and supports our narrative comprehensively. They don't seem to want to come in at the moment because there's all these P900 footages going out. Either that, or they just literally they just don't like being belittled by Nathan when he batters them. But to be honest, most of the protagonist ballers deserve it. I don't think newbies that come in thinking that they're excellent, you know, like the guy from yesterday, maybe not. Level Lee.
I'm only joining just to prove that you can still join. I'm going to leave.
Thank you.
Right, okay.
Yeah, the public link is there.
Carry on.
So, yeah, they don't want to join because they know that they're going to get the bum smacked. And really, it is that the Earth's flat. If it's not flat, it looks very, very, very flat. And it's, you know, we're probably never going to be able to prove it because we have no money, no science, no technology, no scientists. You know, we don't have any money. We have a P900. But based on what we can tell, it seems to be flat. Or at least it's definitely not a ball the size they tell us it is. Who knows what it really is? Could be anything. Anything goes.
Of course we're proving it. Of course we're proving it.
Sure.
I mean, just the footage that I showed today, that is inexplainable on their model.
Correct.
Yeah.
It proves their model wrong. Doesn't prove flat. Doesn't prove that we're not the size of Jupiter. It doesn't prove that we're not something else altogether, something that Alwyn could describe. But it does prove that we're not a ball, and that's the reason why I challenged what's his face, Darren Nesbitt, because he said that made a couple of statements that I know he's got no evidence for, and saying them in front of the TV cameras is not reflecting our position. And really, we shouldn't speculate on what it is. We're better off pointing the facts of what it's not, because we can prove what it's not. We can't prove what it is.
Yeah, yeah, we can say, you know, if there's no curvature, then what is it, right? We know it's not a sphere. We know it's a plane without curvature. So, yeah, probably flat, right?
I do want to know where the edge is, though.
Yeah, well, if there is an edge, I mean, it's very mysterious.
Yeah.
It's very, very mysterious what's really going on, you know? Once you realize it's flat, there really is no benefit in making any.
Yeah, we don't. And
of the universe.
Hey, Alan.
Hi.
I wanted to say as well, just adding on to what you're saying, Anthony, is that, you know, apart from these observations, we also have the fact that the FAA flight planning model works on a flat Earth, works using a flat Earth assumption, and gyroscopes demonstrate a flat Earth. And I read over the FAA document that we were looking at in yesterday's debate again, and in fact, my argument was only verified by what I read. That they assume they use a flat Earth model to do all the flight planning, and then what they were talking about in terms of being able to translate that into a sphere Earth model.
Yes, exactly. They basically pull out a huge amount of mathematics to transform the flat Earth base measurements and transform that into a ball model system. But there's no actual physical relations to the ball with the actual things. There's no dip angle for the planes, none of that.
Hey, Mike.
And what's important is that they start off with the flat Earth model, and then they translate that into a spherical model, if they want to. But they don't start. You know, if it was a sphere, they would have to start with the spherical model and then transfer it to flat. But they do it the other way around.
Yeah, and remember that one sentence is that they basically assume a flat Earth, or they measure the flat Earth for the airplanes. But if you want to then apply it to satellites and space shuttles and all the like, then you cannot assume a flat Earth. That's literally the wording they use. It's not like it isn't a flat Earth, it's a ball. No, it's just that they can't assume a flat Earth when drawing in these types of concepts like satellites and space shuttles. Yeah. That's literally how they worded it.
Could I have Nummy's attention for a sec? Share my Nathan, if you share my screen so chat can see it.
Sure.
Nummy, if you look at click the link at the bottom so that you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with this document?
Make it bigger. Bigger.
You can see it, but I'm not familiar with this document.
All right, so it's written by a guy called Joseph R. Melita, and it's something to do with the army. It comes from arl.army.mil, and then page 1 states, it says approved for public release, distribution unlimited, right? But then it says, page 2, the findings in this report are not to be construed as an official department of the Army position unless so designated by other authorized documents, right? I'm not sure what that means. It seems as though it's saying one thing and then the other. But anyway, it says, destroy this report when it is no longer needed. Do not return it to the originator. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing they put in when it's like really sensitive information, you know, like, please destroy this message. Do not portray to anybody else. James Bond-esque, right? Yeah. Anyway, the point is, it's talking about how the propagation of electromagnetic fields over a flat Earth are. Now, it's dated Feb 2001, so it's relevant at the moment. I need to make it a bit smaller. It's too big for me. And then it talks, I mean, there's like 30 pages in this or something similar, and it talks about, well, the Earth being flat.
That's very interesting. Can you drop that in the side chat here?
I certainly can. But you want to download and save this, because if if for some reason it gets removed, like other documents have been removed when challenged by certain people, like M. Scott Veach, for example, this is probably going to be one of them documents that goes walkies. So make sure you get a copy of it when it gets when you do it, because you're going to need it.
Drop it in the Skype chat. Drop it in the Skype chat as well.
It's just a link. You can click it in the side chat. And if Nathan posts it publicly in the thing for everybody else to see, then
yeah, I'm saving it on my computer right now.
Yeah, just make sure you save it, because people like M. Scott Veach seem to be able to manipulate the 2 refraction documents that we have, or that we used to use, and still have. So just copy it and keep a copy. But the point is, it's the army talking about the propagation of electromagnetic waves over a flat Earth.
Yeah. Well, why are they even talking about a flat Earth, right?
Yeah, exactly. Why is it not just the propagation of electromagnetic waves?
But then it's so funny how these ballers will be like, oh, yeah, so you found they call it a flat Earth in the FAA document. Big deal. What does that prove? It's like, hello.
Do you know, Jeremy was arguing in...
The model's a flat Earth model that they use to plan flights. Like, you don't think that means anything? Like, it's like the one place that it would actually matter. They describe it as a flat Earth.
Jeremy was arguing last night in Esa's chat when I picked up on that 4th condition that they use to manipulate the refractive index value is hypothetical. And he really played on how I'm exaggerating its worth. And I'm like, it says hypothetical, dude. Why is that? Why are you making it out as though I'm exaggerating it? It says hypothetical. That ipso facto means it's not real. And he's making it out with all this extravagant, flamboyant talk and making it sound like I'm overreacting and very theatrical. He should be on pantomime, that guy. He should be the pantomime horse. You know, the guy with the arse bit of the horse. That's the part he should be, because he's very theatrical and he would be brilliant as a pantomime horse. But ultimately, he was trying to make out that I was some kind of exaggerator. And I'm like, dude, it says hypothetical. I know what hypothetical means. It means not real.
Big shout out to Vinegar Strokes for the super chat. Much obliged.
Vinegar Strokes, that was a nice donation. I'm sure Nathan will be along to thank you in a minute.
Anthony has it all off me for cocaine and hookers.
Yeah. How did you find this document, Anthony? Just curious. Did somebody send you this, or did you come across it in your own digging?
Somebody sent it to me and asked me not to reveal who told it them. So it's just an anonymous tip.
All right.
Nice.
It's interesting though that they would even reference flat Earth at all. Why would you just? You wouldn't do that, would you? Right? You would just say propagation of electromagnetic waves, and that would be it. But then they put over a flat Earth, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
How many references are? I mean, they dilute words, make them sound insignificant, because they're in a parrot radius, etc. And then they use words like flat Earth in military documents, and it's like there's becoming like a preponderance of evidence against the idea that we live on a ball, and a lot of it supports flat completely. Yet these people like Jeremy make out that I am in some way exaggerating and enhancing this perception of the use of the word. Oh,
yeah, we'll need to.
Something that Nummy said the other day, I think it might have been yesterday, really resonated with me, which is that when it comes to things that matter, building things, flying, they reference a flat plane. Now, you can question the importance of that, but it doesn't matter how significant you take it to be. That's how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time it really counts, every time, the model would be crucial to the calculations being accurate, it's a flat Earth. Every time.
Yeah. But when it comes to their model, they're allowed to have crazy wrong inaccuracies because they call it a model. But when we try and test it against their model, they blame my shoddy camera work or something nonsense like that. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that camera work. Why are you trying to make it out as though there's something seriously wrong with it? There's nothing. It just shits all over your argument and you don't like it and you're trying to discredit me or the evidence itself. No, that's not acceptable.
Do you know what was interesting though? In your video of the Isle of Man from afoot, we didn't get to see the refraction zone, and that was only because there was no buildings in the foreground where we could judge where it would have been.
Nah, so it's because it was 34 miles. It was double the distance.
Yeah, but those mountains on the left, the floaty land on mine, that's probably from the 150-foot mountain at 30 miles. So
I've got an alternative explanation for that, which is to say that, number one, we don't live on a sphere. right? But number 2, the floaty land. Oh, we've got Jim Bowen trolling the living daylights out of us. We've got, despite the fact that we've got floaty land, you did point out that there's these wavy horizons below it. Now, there's nothing to say if Ranty's showing that the refraction band, or the circle of confusion to give it its more accurate title, can move up above the land that you're seeing. There's no reason to say it can't move down to where the sea is and cause what you were seeing in those multiple horizons below the floaty land.
Yeah. And the other thing that's interesting in my footage, and Rumpus has spotted this, right? Now, this is one of the 2 predictions he did make that we never asked him to, but he did say that the horizon would be compressed. And I thought that's an interesting claim. Before he hadn't seen the evidence at this point, but before he'd seen the evidence, he said that there would be no inferior mirage, and that's actually wrong. There was numerous ones, and they're trying to distance themselves from it, saying that it's not.
Hello?
You're muted.
If you think about, sorry, what?
If we could get a couple of people just to join as placeholders, just so we don't get trolled and have to keep muting the hangout, that's brilliant. Don't necessarily have to join the conversation.
Yeah, so the other claim that he made was that the horizon would appear to be compressed. Now, that doesn't really make any sense on a ball, but it makes a lot of sense on a flat, because as things go away towards the horizon, they compress, they converge, they get squashed. That makes logical sense, right? We know that perspective acts like that. Everybody can envisage that, and even people like Slice Barkane, he can envisage that. He ignores it because he doesn't want it. It's like Tim when he was looking at the Nevada salt flats. He ignored that there was no evidence of a bulge, and he wanted to focus on the horizon. And we're like, yeah, but what about the bulge? And he didn't want to talk about that. And he goes, yeah, it's flat, but what about the horizon? Well, they don't want to talk about the stuff that we can see and prove that's totally consistent with the model.
Yo, I'm here myself. Just placeholder.
Yo.
Cool, man.
Thank you.
Hey, guys.
Good.
Matrix.
Hey, Matrix. Good to have you as well. Thank you.
Hey.
Yeah, if you can get one more, maybe. Just got one gap. And we're still getting a troll who's desperate to get in.
It's right. I'm getting rid of him within a second, so it's.
But the interesting question is, why is it converging if it's a ball? Because it should only converge on a flat, right? And that's clearly what we saw. It was squashed. Now, yeah, you could argue that it's an optical effect caused by some element of refraction, and I couldn't prove otherwise. But isn't it coincidental, right, that it converges the way that you would expect, subject to the rules of perspective? The further something away it goes from you, it squashes, and that's exactly what it's done. So it's like, is that not proof that it's a flat plane?
I said the same. I said the same thing earlier before you joined about the mirages themselves. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the mirage itself proves they're on a flat plane.
I agree. They don't agree though.
Why? How does the mirage itself prove we're on a flat plane?
Because you can't have infinitely bending.
Is that the real Ali?
Ali, good to see you. You can't have it refracted through infinite numbers of layers and maintain a refraction above or below, because it would mean that also has to be refracted, and that makes no sense. That couldn't work on a bending, refracting through infinite layers system. It just wouldn't work. And not only is it the case that my verbalization isn't necessary, because we've had Phil on, and he spent a considerable amount of time from, I don't know, I'm sure he said something like November of last year, modelling out the curve of the Earth with obviously all the presuppositional mathematics in place to bend the light around the curve of the Earth. And the only thing he couldn't replicate was the inferior mirage below the lighthouse and all of it. The reason the nose cone is a nose cone is because there's a mirage there. Well, he couldn't replicate it. And why would you be able to replicate something miraging below itself when the whole thing's being refracted around a curve of an Earth? It's completely nonsensical.
No, he wasn't able to model that stuff using a modeling of refraction.
No, he just wasn't able to model it.
Because it's caused by diffraction, I think. Yeah. Well, that even helps my case even more.
Yeah, he couldn't. It's the only bit he couldn't do. Yeah, he can bring the land back because you just bend it in the way that you want to bend it. But ultimately, the effect that we actually saw, the only actual evidence of any refractive effect happening, he couldn't replicate.
Well, I think that Anthony has been right all along in saying that the effects of refraction are negligible.
Yeah.
All they cause is just a very subtle kind of optical distortion.
And let's remember where that came from. That came from the refractive paper that was from the schoolboys, the one that they all laugh about. Who cares?
So I've got to clarify that, though. You're right, but that is what we're talking about. We are talking about the minutiae, the absolute detail, the nth degree detail of these tiny, tiny areas of the horizon. And when you get in on those sort of scales, that Ranty's looking at this clock tower, for example, you're talking about something that represents a tiny amount of the visual field that you actually have available to you. Tiny amount. And the amount of effect that he's capturing on these tiny scales is astonishing, which is why it is... I mean, I made a joke about this yesterday. I was like, it's easy, I could do it freestyle, which Ranty actually did do this freestyle amazingly. But, you know, it is incredibly difficult because you're talking about tiny amounts of things you can see, and with the naked eye you definitely can't see any of it.
Yeah, it's like 0.01 degrees of your, or 0.1 degree of your visual field or something like that.
Tony,
yo,
you were asked
where what say that again, where what?
You asked where the edge was.
Okay.
He's playing guitar in U2. And with regard your document being secret, if you read the first page, it said approved for public release.
Yeah, I did point that bit out.
And it uses quite a lot of maths. I thought you said maths proves nothing.
Maths doesn't prove anything. Maths has never ever proved causation.
Well, this document seems to prove that microwave weapons work on flat fields.
Now it describes it. It describes how it works.
Describes things, Alan. It's used to
because if it described how it worked, somebody would be able to build one from a public document.
Science proves things.
What's your point, though?
That it seems to you you're using something that seems to contradict what you've said before.
Go on, then. Identify the contradiction.
The contradiction is maths proves nothing.
No, maths can't prove causation.
Well, this seems to prove that if you point a microwave weapon at somebody, it would kill them.
That's not maths, though, is it?
Well, there seems to be a lot of maths here.
Did you just say if?
It doesn't even describe that.
It
just describes how it works.
Yeah, I think it's
that's an if question.
Pathways and everything.
Okay. He never claimed it proved anything. He just said, this is an interesting document. Why don't you have a look?
No, it isn't. He's just focused on the title. It's just because they're using a flat field.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah, I did focus. Yeah. Hang on, I focus on the title because if I go into the document, right, somebody will say, "Oh, you've just cherry picked one phrase and missed and took it out of context and suit." No, I done the heading only so that other people can look at it and make their own views and interpretations on it.
You slippery guy.
But this isn't proof, Alan. Hold on, right? You're asking an if question and then saying it's proof. An if question can't result in proof.
Up.
I mean, shut up. I'm proving to you that this cannot be proof if you're asking an if question.
You sound like Quantum Eraser. You're sleeping with him tonight.
Why would you do this? I've just got you on the ropes. Either accept that your toes are going to have a couple of matches shoved under your toenails, or why is it you're now? Why you're now doing a rumpus? Why are you trolling us now? You went from being the humorous guy on the side to now being a full-blown troll overnight. What's happened, Alan?
I don't know. Where did it all go wrong?
Yeah, so except that I'm now going to stuff a few matches under your toes and
No,
point
you're
out
not.
that you cannot... no, don't troll me like rumpus, mate. I'm going to say it again. You can't
Don't
prove
call
things
me
with it.
mate
You
either.
can't prove things with an if question, can you? If you are doing something, that's not proof of anything. See, that's because you're looking for proof from maths. And science, that's where you should be looking. It establishes causal relationships. You understand that?
Alan's gone sour.
Yeah, he's gone rogue.
Oh, I just wanted to ask Anthony,
Yeah.
do you want to do a live stream with me later on my channel?
What time?
A little after 6 perhaps, or 6:30.
Yeah.
That's GMT. 6:30 GMT. I want to basically you to show your video.
Do you not mean BST?
Sorry?
Do you not mean BST?
GMT.
No.
British Mean Time.
Yeah, we're in British summertime.
Well, okay. Yeah, so, right, okay, it's fine. Because I was going to do it either way, but it would be nice to do your presentation followed by mine with a, sort of like basically, this is what we're seeing from a foot, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Happy days. So, to everyone in chat, I'll be doing a live stream later. I haven't done one for a while.
You know exact what time?
6:30. So that will be just a little under 4 hours.
Oh, bummer! You'll be clashing with me. I wanted to watch you do it.
What time are you doing?
I think it's 1 p.m. Central. I think it's 6 p.m. UK.
Okay. All right, so we can do it after yours then, about 7:15.
Yeah, I reckon it'll be about 3/4 of an hour. The presentation by John. I've heard it a couple of times now, so I'm not going to be interrupting him asking questions. And I know Anthony's sat in on the presentation too and asked all of his questions, so he'll hopefully just go through it.
Yeah, I've got some more stuff I can show from the P900. There's a lot of other evidence that needs to go with this, so yeah, it's all good.
Any of it in focus, Ranty?
Yeah, I get criticised to death for my apparent poor video skills, and I'm like, hang on a minute, aim some of that hassle over at Ranty's way.
You should take some lessons off your girlfriend.
She hasn't got a P900 though. She does like dogs.
She takes better pictures than you though.
Yeah, not on like 34 miles away. Hers are all like 6 inches away.
Is that the correct size then, Tony?
Width.
That's some girth.
Impressive, right?
Anyway.
Yeah. Alan started it.
So Alan, have you done any video?
Ranty.
Alan,
done any what?
Alan, ow, Alan, ow.
Yeah, that squirrel.
Yeah.
Alan.
That's not a squirrel.
It was a squirrel.
Meerkat.
Oh, there was a squirrel and a meerkat. That's right.
So have you got any footage that we can look at?
Got some of the stars.
Doesn't really prove much.
Yeah.
If we look at them to extrapolate any proof, we have to presuppose Earth, don't we? We have to presuppose what the shape of the Earth is if we're going to extrapolate proof from the stars.
Or as Arwin says, shiny objects, holograms in the sky. Sounds like a Beatles title.
Sure, but my point being that we can't really extrapolate any proof from them unless we presuppose we're on a sphere to begin with. So they're a bit problematic.
Yes, you stay on the fence, Nathan.
What did you think of Ranty's picture from 1.5 feet above the water?
It'd have been nice if it had been in focus.
Right, 30 kilometers. That's quite some distance. You realise that, right?
Yeah, maybe you should just clean your glasses a little bit.
It's just pixel smudge, isn't it, Alan?
It's a terrible sensor in that camera, and the
You're not really giving your opinion on the pictures. You're kind of giving your opinion on the camera, though, aren't you, really? So what did you think of the actual things he caught in the pictures, which would be...
It looked like it was shot by Ranty on a bouncy castle.
Right, the stills.
Yes. It looked like he shot them on a bouncy castle.
Right. So
Alan,
the contents of the images that were clearly visible. For instance, a clock face.
Well, if you want a verdict, slightly better than Anthony, but not good enough. See me after class.
You don't seem to... Yeah. You seem to be obfuscating the point of this show with your answers. Clearly, that needs more qualification. I'm not assessing these photographs on their artistic quality, but on their long-range observation. You understand that, right? This is a flat Earth debate.
Nah, Alan's not here to debate. He never really is. He's just here to clown around.
Says Arwin.
Yeah, says me.
Got nothing. We've got nothing from the panel, nothing from the chat. Just ad hom
Exactly.
and criticism.
Exactly.
Oh, he's got a lot to say now. Just criticism of the artistic quality. That's it. That's his opinion on it.
Well, it's not a big request to ask for the evidence to be in focus.
It was in focus. I could see
do
the
realise it's
circle
automatic
of the
focus,
church. Of the.
Can you not, Ranty? Can you not do it manually?
You do realise it's automatic.
Can you not do it manually?
Yeah, you can override it manually.
Indeed, you can. You can do it on all kinds of settings.
Sorry, we're doing this again. So let's just get this straight. So I've just said I don't want this obfuscation about the quality of the camera, the focusing ability, but the stills that were in focus, that we could see steeples and clock faces and their long range attributes, not their quality of focus or the camera's ability or Ranty's ability. That's what this debate is about. So can you stop obfuscating and just answer your opinion in terms of the Earth, perhaps? Silence again.
I'm not playing.
Oh, right. You don't want to talk about the shape of the Earth on this show.
Could you show us how it conforms to the ball then, perhaps?
No, he's not here to talk about the shape of the Earth, is he?
He's gone.
He's not here to talk about the shape of the Earth. He's here to talk about artistic abilities of cameramen. Go to a photography forum, you stupid wanker. Yeah, just to remind the audience, this is a flat Earth debate. We are not here to assess quality of photography ability. That is not what this is for. None of these photos are here to be critiqued on their artistic credibility. I couldn't care less how focused they are if you can clearly make out the clock face at 30 kilometres. At that point, it's not relevant how good the quality of images is. We're not going for photography prizes. What the hell is he even here for? Just annoys me, people like Alan. He's just here to troll.
Yeah. And
Can I comment on something?
Anymore.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so on the footage on Ranty, that's beautiful because I'm going to do a quick analogy. When there's a fire in a building, there's a physical something going on with the smoke. And then they say in the drill in the schools, you got to drop to the floor so you can see further underneath the smoke and you can breathe a little better, you know? So there's a physical phenomena going on with the smoke. Same thing is going on with it. Visual, you know, optical phenomena going on with the atmosphere is the same thing. If we are a certain height, there's a phenomena going on. If we drop very low, then we can see through. And then if we go very high, we can see above also. Now, how do we exactly present that? How do we figure it out? That's what we are working on. Now, is it curvature? Hell no. I'll mute myself.
Now, there definitely seems to be some kind of layer that has these light bending properties, and depending on the angle you're looking through, there seems to be all kinds of effects. And at eye height, yeah, the difference was very visible. And if you look at it low down to the ground, then you can bypass some of these distortion properties. If you go up very high, then you also bypass it. If you go an eye height and a little bit higher, I don't know how large would that zone be, like between 5 and 20 feet or something.
I just want to say that's
the most levels of distortion.
That's an excellent analogy.
And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully for sharing this live debate. And also a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. If you've not done so already, be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!